Hi, I'm Clare Pollard and welcome to Clare's Poetry Circle. Every week this autumn I'm uploading a mini poetry workshop for beginners with a writing exercise and I hope you'll join me. Do spread the word, tell anyone else you think might enjoy it and press the subscribe button on YouTube if you can. This week the workshop's about dramatic monologues or persona poems. So these are most basically poems in the voice of someone other than yourself. I'm very interested in dramatic monologues. I actually had a play on quite a long time ago now at the Royal Court called The Weather, and dramatic monologues are a way for me of carrying that interest in theatre and performance over to poetry. I'm so keen on the form that I actually translated or made a new version of the first ever book of dramatic monologues, which is Ovid's Heroides. I've translated it as Ovid's Heroines, that's with blood axe, in which the ancient Roman poet, Ovid was in ancient Rome, wrote a series of poems that are kind of letters in the voices of women from Greek and Roman myths. So Penelope, Medea, Ariadne, Dido, and so on. I toured it as a one-woman show with Jaybird Live Literature a couple of years ago, so that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing Medea very much. Perhaps too much. Anyway, a dramatic monologue in poetry is most basically when the poet speaks through an assumed voice as a character or a fictional identity. However, there are stricter definitions which claim they should also be a bit like theatrical monologues, so they should be addressed to a particular person or audience, with the direct address you often used, and they should share the same kind of physical and historical space to that you. So dramatic monologues often begin, look at this painting, My Last Duchess, Robert Browning, or come over here, or, you look surprised by this, something like that, to suggest they're in a shared space. So when you're writing a dramatic monologue, I'd like you to think of these things, and if you've got a pen and pencil, you might want to jot them down. Who is speaking? When are they speaking? At what point in their story? Where are they and who are they speaking to? And there's a fourth question as well. Why are they speaking? What's their motivation? I once did a brilliant writing course at the Royal Court with the playwright Simon Stevens. And that's a really key question when you're writing drama. We want these dramatic monologues to be dramatic. So, why are they speaking? What's their motivation? I'm going to read you the beginning of Ovid's Penelope letter. So she's Ulysses' wife, and in Homer's The Odyssey, she has to wait for many years for her husband to return from the Trojan War. And this is how Ovid's letter goes. Dear Ulysses, you're late. Don't worry about answering, just come home. The enemy of Grecian wives has fallen, but honestly, Troy wasn't worth it. If only Paris had drowned in some storm when he was heading for Sparta, I wouldn't lie frigid in my bed or have to moan of tedious days or pass my nights like some poor widow at the loom's dull web. So she's Penelope. She's at the point in the story where she's been waiting a long time for Ulysses to return from his voyage. Where is she? She's probably in her room, we assume, from the domestic detail of the bed and the loom, and we know she's writing a letter. She's addressing her husband, Ulysses, directly, dear Ulysses. What's her motivation? A bit more complicated. It's boredom, desperation. I don't think she thinks this letter will really get to him, but she wants to get things off her chest. She wants to do something. She's missing having her husband to speak to. One thing I found about translating these is I was a bit worried the voices might all sound samey, but for me, once I worked out what each of their motivations was, that was really helpful. So one letter is trying to seduce, one is a suicide note, one is a curse, one is a plea for rescue, and so on. Okay, there's another little exercise I want you to do to help you think about dramatic monologues. So let's think for a moment about our idiolect. I don't know if you know that term, but it means we each have our own very personal vocabulary, and that's our idiolect. Everybody has one. What does it consist of? Well, mine might contain dialect words in my vocabulary. I was brought up in Lancashire, and I say words like mither for pester, stop mithering, or marred for being soft, not the same as mardy, which I know people in Sheffield use and stuff, but don't be marred, you know. I don't want to go out in the rain, Mum, don't be marred. I might also have generational words. Teenagers often do. When I was a teenager, a long time ago, we'd cop off with people when we were snogging. Things were sad if they were uncool. I might have cultural words, so these can be to do with your religion or your community. Yiddish might be an example. Or they can be to do with your social class, so calling lunch dinner and dinner tea like I do, for example. I still confuse my children. That's probably a class thing. I might have vocational words, words linked to work or hobbies or duties. I'm a poet, so words like stanza and iambic pentameter. You might have words relating to the building trade or office jargon. When I became a mum, that has its own vocabulary of latching and jumperoos and rhyme time. Or perhaps, you know, you're having to battle with the language of the job centre or something. I might also have words that are personal, part of a code with friends and family. My family used to squink drinks. We'd say, if you had a sip from the family can of pop, the one who drinks it squinks it, the one who drinks it has to carry it. The poet Paul Muldoon has a great poem called Croof about his family's word for a hot water bottle. So jot down these headings, I'm going to say them again in a second, then pause the screen and try to think of a couple of your own words for each category. So dialect, generational, cultural, vocational, personal. Okay. Now, you're back. Firstly, hopefully you've come up with some interesting words, and as poets, we're collectors of interesting words, so store those, keep them safe. And they're words with the feel of you about them. They might add some interest and texture to your poems. Too often people use a much narrower vocabulary in their poems than they actually do in real life, when it should be the opposite way round. Think about how a brilliant poet like Seamus Heaney or Liz Berry might use a few dialect words. Secondly, a way of making your dramatic monologues more interesting and making their voice distinct from yours is to add just a little sprinkle of idiolect. And by thinking about those categories for your character, you're going to build a really three-dimensional character for your poem, because you have to know where they're from, their class and background, their historical moment, their role in life, their personal life. And so just a sprinkle of those few idiolect words can really add, say, a Victorian flavour to a poem. Or, you know, if you're writing about a military leader making a speech, a bit of the correct military jargon might really add to it and make it more realistic and interesting. Remember, poets love interesting words. I have a poem about a bearded lady. It used to be my fancy dress costume of choice, and I added just a sprinkle of Polari, the travellers or circus language, to it, which I found really interesting to research. The tilt as a name for the big top, and shushing for stealing, and so on. Okay, so now for this week's writing exercise, I'd like you to write a poem in the voice of a historical figure, by which I mean someone dead. It can be from any period of history that interests you. It could be someone famous you've always been intrigued by: Cleopatra, Frida Kahlo, Charles Darwin, Socrates, Billie Holiday, you know, someone you've read a biography of recently or watched a documentary about. But they could also be someone really ordinary, a maid or a soldier. Maybe an ancestor of yours. Now you need to think about those questions again. Who is speaking? When are they speaking? Where are they? Who are they speaking to? What's their motivation? Is this a deathbed confession to their child? A rousing speech to a crowd to try and make them do something? A love letter that's trying to seduce? Also, if you can put a little sprinkle of idiolect in the poem, that I think would be the cherry on the cake. So enjoy the exercise. Do share your poems in the YouTube comments or on Instagram or Twitter at the hashtag Clarespoetrycircle. You can follow me on either of those. I'm at Poet Clare, no I. You can also share on Facebook, of course, but reminder, I'm not on there, so sorry if I don't see those. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Do tell your friends. And I'll see you next week. Bye.